Prime Minister Netanyahu is in Washington for a crucial visit with the U.S. administration to discuss the Iranian threat and Trump's new tariffs, which will negatively impact Israel. But there were a few surprises in store during his meeting with Trump this week. Let's take a look.
In a surprising turn of events, U.S. President Donald Trump, alongside Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, announced the initiation of direct nuclear talks with Iran, set to begin on Saturday. The revelation came during a high-stakes meeting in the Oval Office with the Israeli Prime Minister, where Trump declared that negotiations have already begun and will continue this Saturday. He said, quote, "Everybody agrees that doing a deal would be preferable, but warned that failure would spell a, quote, very bad day for Iran."
And they've started. It'll go on Saturday. We have a very big meeting, and we'll see what can happen. And I think everybody agrees that doing a deal would be preferable to doing the obvious. And the obvious is not something that I want to be involved with, or frankly, that Israel wants to be involved with if they can avoid it. So we're going to see if we can avoid it.
Prime Minister Netanyahu, while supportive of diplomatic efforts, made clear that his main concern is preventing Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon. He said that if a deal can achieve that, it would be a positive outcome, but stopped short of full endorsement. In response, Iranian officials dismissed Trump's claims, insisting that they have not agreed to direct talks. They stated that any communication with the United States will remain strictly indirect. All this comes as the Islamic regime continues to sponsor global terrorism. Just this week, Tehran smuggled a shipment of arms to Sudan in an attempt to build a new terror proxy group in Africa. During the same time, Netanyahu also revealed ongoing efforts with the Trump administration to secure a new hostage deal. He referenced past success in bringing home 25 hostages and said current talks are aimed at freeing others still held in Gaza. Both leaders expressed hope that progress could be made. Trump again reiterated his desire to own Gaza, calling it an important piece of real estate, and proposed U.S. peacekeeping forces to control the territory. The discussion between the two leaders also touched on trade tensions between the two countries. Netanyahu promised to eliminate Israel's trade surplus with the United States, but Trump declined to commit to reducing tariffs on Israeli goods.
Well, joining us now in the studio to break down some of these recent events in Washington is veteran journalist Kalev Ben-David. Kalev, great to have you with us. To start, what's your response to the meeting that we saw in the White House?
Well, this was a surprise meeting in a way. It was at the last second, and I think there were some surprises for Prime Minister Netanyahu there. They just look at the sort of the contrast between this meeting and their last meeting a couple of months ago, which really went well for Prime Minister Netanyahu. Here, there were some challenging developments, I think, for Israel, for the Prime Minister, especially the announcement of the talks with Iran. First of all, just the fact that it was a surprise. Everybody assumed that Israel and the U.S. were in complete coordination, certainly on possible military action and the military buildup in the region. And then the talks, then suddenly there's a surprise announcement of talks in Amman. So just the fact that it's a surprise. Now, the result of the talks could be positive for Israel, but it really depends on what the parameters are going to be. Clearly, it's going to be a challenge to get Iran to totally dismantle its nuclear program. But Israel has other interests. The ballistic missile program of Iran. What about Iran's funding and support of groups like the Houthis? So everything depends there on what are the parameters, how these talks develop. But clearly, I do think that was an unpleasant surprise for Prime Minister Netanyahu.
Well, it certainly seems that way. I mean, when it comes to these nuclear negotiations or these talks that are taking place, we see the regime saying, no, we didn't agree to direct talks. And we see the Trump administration saying, yes, they did. And now there's sort of this turn in the Ayatollah's words that, okay, yeah, we're having talks, but not direct talks. Is there a deal that can actually be made between these two clearly very egoistic actors? I
mean, there is a deal that could be made. The question is if that deal would fulfill any of the, first of all, hopes of Israel, that it would be a real end to Iran's nuclear weapons program, whether President Trump can get more than what President Obama could get. Obviously, if he offered the same deal, the Iranians would probably agree. But certainly for Israel, sees that as just a flawed deal that really didn't stop Iran. And for the Iranians to give more than, for example, they gave to the Obama administration, they don't seem to have shown any flexibility for that. And of course, there are these other issues involved, as I've said, supporting these terror groups like Hezbollah and the Houthis. And again, it's interesting the choice of Steve Witkoff is going to supposedly be representing in what are going to initially be indirect talks. Apparently, one of Oman's, I think, foreign minister, deputy foreign minister will mediate, and then they could move to direct talks. But you would hope that someone like Secretary of State Rubio, he's been quite hawkish on the Iranians and distrustful of them, that he would be involved in the talks. Maybe at a later stage he will.
Well, we'll have to follow that closely. I want to change gears a little bit and ask you about these tariffs. What are the impact of these tariffs on the state of Israel? We know it's one of the issues that Netanyahu went to Washington to discuss with Trump.
Right. Another unpleasant surprise. Because prior to this, the prime minister had guaranteed that Israel would remove all tariffs on U.S. goods, which would itself be something significant in the Israeli economy. But apparently that is not enough. President Trump has made clear, not just in Israel, it's not the issue of tariffs, but trade deficits that he wants to either greatly reduce or equalize. Emily, Israel's trade deficit with the United States is $7.4 billion in Israel's favor. And you'd expect it to be a small country trading with a much bigger, much richer country. You'd expect that to be a little imbalanced. It would be very difficult for Israel to equalize, even shorten that in any short period of time. And that means Israel's going to be hit with these tariffs. And that's going to be a shock to the Israeli economy on top of the other shocks, which is what we're seeing, for example, in the Israeli stock market.
Well, we are almost out of time, but I just wanted to get your take on this whole we're going to own Gaza thing. Is he serious? Is this a negotiating tactic? What's your take?
It's hard to say. I think that's his desire. I think it's more of a negotiating tactic at this point. I would say that was the one positive aspect of the meeting for Prime Minister Netanyahu, in that some people anticipated Trump may have pressured him to accept an immediate deal, maybe the Egyptian compromise deal that's now being proposed, which could have been politically problematic for the prime minister. So it didn't seem that he was pressuring, that Trump was pressuring, that we know, to take that deal. So some breathing room for Prime Minister Netanyahu on that. But in terms of how Trump sees it, I think he would like to see the U.S. own Gaza. But at this stage, it's more realistic as a negotiating tactic than as something we're going to see.
Absolutely. All right, Kalev Ben David, thank you for your insights today.
Pleasure.
The United States continued airstrikes in Yemen, hitting Islamic Republic-backed Houthi strategic locations and targeting senior officials. All of this after the U.S. Defense Secretary said it was about to get worse for the terrorist organization. ILTV's Shosh Bedrosian has the details.
Overnight, more U.S. airstrikes conducted inside of Yemen targeting the Iranian-backed Houthis. With airstrikes in Hodeidah, Marib, and the capital Sana'a, the Houthis claim their senior intelligence leader was killed in the strikes overnight. Also Monday night, the IDF says a drone from the east was launched and intercepted by the Air Force. They say the drone was shot down before crossing into Israel and no sirens were sounded according to protocol. The Houthis took responsibility for the attack, saying they launched a drone at Israel targeting Tel Aviv. They also claimed to have targeted 2 U.S. destroyers in the Red Sea. In a meeting in the Oval Office with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, President Donald Trump said that the United States military campaign against the Houthis has been very successful. He also said the campaign has, quote, really damaged them, and that, quote, it's every night, night after night, and we've gotten many of their leaders and their experts. U.S. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth also said the Houthis have suffered a major hit while he was in the Oval Office.
It's been a bad 3 weeks for the Houthis, and it's about to get worse. It's been a devastating campaign, whether it's underground facilities, weapons manufacturing, bunkers, troops in the open, air defense assets. We are not going to relent, and it's only to get more unrelenting until the Houthis declare they will stop shooting at our ships. And we've been very clear at the Iranians as well. They should not continue to provide support to the Houthis, and that message has been made very clear. So we have a lot more options and a lot more pressure to apply, and we know, because we see the reports, how devastating this campaign has been in them, and we will not relent.
Hegseth said the United States will not stop until the Houthis declare they will stop shooting at their ships. Meanwhile, he also said they've made it clear to Iran they must stop providing support to the Houthis.
Well, Israel is drawing red lines in Syria and making sure that Turkey sees them, making clear that they will not tolerate threats to its strategic freedom in Syria. In recent days, the Israeli Air Force struck multiple military sites, including the T4 air base, just as Turkey was preparing to move in with drones and air defense systems. Israeli officials say the strikes were timed deliberately, sending a message before Turkish assets made the base off limits. In response, Israel and Turkey are now negotiating a deconfliction line. Both released identical statements saying they don't seek conflict, clear evidence of coordinated back-channel communication. But Israel remains firm. It insists on full demilitarization of southern Syria. Turkish air defense systems, including potential Russian-made S-400s, would limit Israeli freedom to act against threats. Unlike in the past, Ankara has toned down its rhetoric. Analysts say Turkey is aware of Israel's close ties with Washington and is choosing caution over escalation. As Syria remains unstable, Israel is moving to preemptively protect its interests, acting early rather than allowing threats to grow. And while negotiations continue, Israel is making one thing clear. It won't hesitate to act when its security is on the line.
We've had neighborly relations with Turkey that have deteriorated, and we don't want to see Syria being used by anyone, including Turkey, as a base for attack on Israel. Turkey is a country that has a great relationship with the United States. The president has a relationship with the leader of Turkey. We discussed how we can avoid this conflict.
Well, 8 months ago, after the deadly rocket attack in the Druze community of Majd al-Shams, the families of 12 children killed are working to find purpose through spiritual and religious beliefs. Most media outlets will reshare their stories on the anniversary of the attack, but ILTV is dedicated to keeping their memories alive, no matter the time of year. ILTV's Shosh Bedrosian reports from the border of Israel and Lebanon and speaks with the families.
The crisp air in Majd al-Shams is masked through the joy of children playing on the soccer field. It's a place that is filled with life and hope in this small Druze community that sits on the border of Lebanon.
When I was younger, I used to always dream of traveling and like living outside of Israel altogether. But now, I can't imagine leaving this town.
20-year-old Mila Sha'ar has lived here her whole life, and this field has always been a central fixture in it.
The thing he loved the most in the world, it was soccer. If you see how many footballs he have at home, you'd go oh my God, he has so many.
Her youngest brother Milar was always decked out in soccer jerseys, wanting to become a professional player one day. That's why on July 27th, it was no surprise the 10-year-old wanted to spend the evening doing what he loved the most.
Since my grandma died, every Saturday we went somewhere, the whole family, my uncles, cousins, everybody. We were all there, we were having so much fun. And since morning, my brother was like, my friends are calling me, they're at the field, I want to go there. And I had work at 6 p.m. So when it came time that I want to leave, I told him, okay, I'll take you with me.
Sha'ar was the last one in her family to see Milar alive that day.
Hi everyone, my name is Milar.
As the funny, kind, and bright boy would soon be the youngest victim of a Hezbollah rocket attack. Just 18 minutes later, sirens sounded, and with no time to spare, the rocket directly hit the field while children played on it.
To be honest, when I want to go to sleep, as soon as I close my eyes, I started seeing that day. It all start coming back to me.
Sha'ar said she couldn't reach her brother and found out he was rushed to the hospital.
When I made it there, I went to the room that he was in, and I saw where his knee, he had a big chunk, of meat gone. A few minutes later, when we went in there, he was unconscious. We couldn't talk to him. He was all bloody. And yes, just a half an hour later, maybe, they told us that he passed away.
A light dimmed for 12 Druze families that day as the lives of their innocent children aged 10 years old to 16 were brutally cut short. A turning point in a deadly war that now thrusted the tight-knit ethnic Druze community into the center of it. With nowhere else to turn, the families began to rely on each other and created this shared space to grieve.
זה הבן שלי וזה האחיין. גדלו ביחד, כל הזמן היו ביחד.
Laith Abu Saleh lost his 16-year-old son Fajr and nephew Hazem in the attack.
מרגישים אותו דבר, אנחנו מאז ה-27 לשבעי, אני גאה בהם, ואנחנו מאמינים בגלגול נשמות, אז אני מאחל להם שיהיו במקומות יותר טובים מכאן וחיים יותר שמחים, שיהיו במקום שיש בו יותר שלום מבו מהאזור שלנו.
The remnants of July 27th linger in Majd al-Shams. A mangled fence and the chaos from that day can still be seen and felt 8 months later.
What is it like for you to come back to the location where this happened?
At first it was pretty hard, you know, to see, like, when I see like what the missile did to the metal, and you know, like you can see the building there, like what it did to the building. Like I can't imagine what it did to their little bodies, you know.
The community has leaned on their spiritual and religious beliefs to make sense of the horrific tragedy from that day.
You found purpose in your brother's death through your religion.
Yes,
Talk to me about it.
Religious people from our town, they started telling us that God picked them one by one, 12 stars. He picked them for a reason, you know. As Druze, we say Alhamdulillah for everything. It means like thank God for everything, you know. So even when my brother died, I kept saying Alhamdulillah, thank God for everything. It's like everything happens for a reason. Everything has purpose in life.
How would Milar feel knowing that there's children still playing on this field today?
I think he is pretty happy. The life in this field hasn't died that day with the kids, you know. It's still going. They're still coming here. They're not afraid. It makes me feel so much better.
This story is part of a series we're putting together on the Majd al-Shams community. Tune in the rest of the week to watch the other stories. And now, in one of Manhattan's busiest train stations, pro-Palestinian protesters decided to take over Grand Central train station in New York City. Eyewitnesses believe they were protesting Netanyahu's visit to the White House this week and in wake of Trump's comments about his plan for Gaza. Eyewitnesses say masked protesters with flags and signs took over the train station and halted all trains. Because of the chaos, they erupted inside. This type of shutdown has happened multiple times since the beginning of the war, with protesters spewing hate and bigotry during these events. The protest took place during rush hour as thousands of New Yorkers commuted from home to work. And now for something a little more inspiring, Americans for Ben-Gurion University is supporting Ben-Gurion University faculty and researchers to restore Israel's environment, develop sustainable innovations, and train the next generation of leaders to tackle global climate challenges. We have more on this from ILTV's Devo Klein.
Israel's periphery has been deeply impacted by the October 7th massacre and the ongoing war. Fires ignited by terror missiles, bombings, and the movement of ground forces have devastated the region's natural beauty and fragile ecosystem, endangering the very land that tens of thousands still hope to call home.
It's an opportunity, but also obligation to help in the restoration of this area, and we are strongly involved.
Professor Yaron Ziv, former head of Ben-Gurion University's Goldman Sonnenfeld School of Sustainability and Climate Change, emphasizes the urgent need to restore Israel's nature reserves and open spaces. Without intervention, many species may struggle to recover. Take the South, for example. Each year from December to March, the region was once blanketed in vibrant red anemones. But today, many of those fields have been destroyed. And beyond their beauty, these landscapes are deeply woven into the community's identity, playing a crucial role in resilience and well-being. This is just one way Ben-Gurion University of the Negev applies ecological science to real-world challenges. Professor Ziv's lab works closely with farmers, regional leaders, and NGOs to develop sustainable systems that support both agriculture and natural ecosystems. This balance is especially critical in the Negev, where land and resources are limited. As Ziv notes, people are more likely to protect nature when they feel personally connected to it. BGU is turning David Ben-Gurion's vision into a reality, ensuring the desert continues to bloom. by supporting initiatives like the School of Sustainability and Climate Change and Professor Ziv's work. Americans for Ben-Gurion University supports BGU in shaping a future where nature and communities thrive together. A for BGU helps make it possible for hundreds of students from around the world to study at BGU as part of the English-speaking master's and PhD programs currently offered at the Jacob Lostein Institute for Desert Research in Israel. International students include those from developing countries like India and Africa, as well as the United States.
Is that I'll be able to take the knowledge and the best understanding in desert agriculture production and be able to implement those knowledge of irrigation, knowledge of nutrient management, specifically for precision agriculture for my region. And this will enable us to be able to become food secure, which is the major problem currently that we're facing in my region back at home.
These students not only contribute valuable research in BGU's labs, but also gain critical skills and knowledge. When they return home, they apply what they've learned to strengthen their own communities, creating a ripple effect of innovation and progress.
They get the knowledge and they take it and spread it and use it. And, you know, it's a small world after all.
In general, Professor Ziv says that BGU is dedicated to equipping the next generation of environmental leaders.
From my point of view, you know, there are three very important things: education, education, and education.
BGU and Professor Ziv's impact extends far beyond Israel. University leaders have played key roles on national and international committees, including the Managing Committee of the Society for the Protection of Nature in Israel and UNESCO's Man and Biosphere Committee for Israel. Their research is shaping the future of sustainable agriculture. For example, BGU scientists have developed vegetable strains that thrive in desert climates and can be irrigated with saline water, innovations that can be shared with countries facing similar environmental challenges.
There is a saying that if you change one person's life, you change the entire world, you know, something like that, a cliche. I think that, you know, we need to go student by student, one by one, you know, slowly, you know, think globally, act locally. That's another saying that we use in climate change philosophy and so on. So this is what we're trying to do. I think that producing the next leaders in the world, and in Israel definitely, from BGU is really important.
Join us in restoring Israel's land, nurturing its people, and shaping the next generation of environmental leaders. Your support for A for BGU isn't just an investment in the future, it's a commitment to resilience, to innovation, and hope.
You can scan the QR code to lead the way forward with Americans for Ben-Gurion University and support BGU's next generation of environmental leaders. And just before we announce the weather forecast, Israel is heading into another heat wave set to last for the next couple of days before we reach the weekend. Israeli weather analysts are predicting hot temperatures at night, reaching highs of 30 degrees Celsius or 86 degrees Fahrenheit, and strong gusts of winds with high humidity levels. For those looking for a cooler Passover this year, don't worry, because temperatures will drop again this Thursday ahead of the holiday. And now let's take a look at that weather forecast. Cloudy skies are expected tonight around the country, with hot temperatures reaching lows of only 20 degrees Celsius or 68 degrees Fahrenheit. Tomorrow we should see more cloudy skies and warm weather with temperatures at 25 degrees Celsius or 75 degrees Fahrenheit. That's a wrap for today's news. For the latest updates from Israel on all your devices, be sure to follow our ILTV channel, subscribe to our newsletter, and explore our website, ILTV.tv. Stay informed with the latest news straight from the heart of Israel. I'm Emily Schrader. Be well, and thank you for watching.